Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Here again with Tim Forshee of Forshee Law. You should absolutely be using Tim for your trusts. Certainly if you're here in Arizona for your criminal law and self-defense law. This is the guy that I would call if I'm in a gunfight. And family law too. So this is your dude right here. My guy for sure has helped me and my family. Anyhow, I decided I was going to spring one on him. I always like to do this as fun because he's so prepared and he's prepared exactly his points. But then when you take him outside of that, then you get to explore the deep well of extemporaneous knowledge.
You get to watch in slow motion John's fist just sink into my
no.
gut. Yeah.
We were joking on the end of the last video about everybody's knowledge of court coming from Hawaii Five-0 and Law and Order. There's a recent series that's out that has been a book series that's been made into a Netflix series, which is really good. It's a good series called The Lincoln Lawyer. I don't know if you've watched The Lincoln Lawyer.
I read all the books, Connelly's books.
Okay.
And I've watched all the first season and I think half the second season.
Yeah, I only have like 1 or 2 episodes left in the second season. But today I want to talk about, particularly, he's watched a bunch of that, how much hogwash there is in the legal parts of The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, I will also be on your team as a consulting expert, and you can attend our monthly active self-protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below.
Some.
Yeah,
so the books are pretty accurate. The books are pretty good. If you haven't read the books, I highly recommend. Now, I'm embarrassed to admit that he's also written the Harry Bosch series. Michael Connelly's the same lawyer, and I haven't read those, and I've heard those are awesome, and I need to read those. But I really did get hooked on the Mickey cases, on the
Lincoln Lawyer,
on the Lincoln Lawyer series. Yeah.
Now the author of those is a lawyer.
Correct, Michael
right?
Connelly.
Yeah, Michael Connelly. So you'd expect he obviously knows.
It's like Scott Turow. It wrote Presumed Innocent. He was a practicing attorney in Chicago, so you'd hope that they get those details right. Yeah.
So then they adapted it to Netflix.
That's where the problem comes in, right? When you adapt from the book by the author who knows the subject matter, and then you get the screenwriters involved, it sometimes changes,
And hopefully Connelly gets to have a big part of consulting, and it's his work, and but of course, here's the thing, I know some big authors, you know what I mean? So like I'm friends with Larry Correia, who's reading The Monster Hunter.
Stephen Hunter.
Yeah, and so Larry goes, listen, if a studio comes and offers me a bunch of money for my rights, sure, here you go, have at it. And if I can consult, great. But if they want to do their own thing, I wrote the books, not the movie. And I'll take your paycheck. So, and my problem, I'm wondering what your experience is, Tim, because I watch these shows and my wife just starts rolling her eyes because I'm like, that had never happened. No, that's going to cause a mistrial right now.
It sounds like we have the same wife, I'm telling you, if we're watching a movie that has to do with firearms or a movie that has to do with the law, that's exactly what happens. I'm like, that would never happen. They'd never file that motion. There's no way on God's earth that jury would have gotten that instruction from that judge. There's no way that judge would have ruled on that objection. Why isn't he objecting? I'm constantly saying stuff like that. But just as much when I watch it. Now, if I'm watching a rom-com and there's some very peripheral small issue about a gun, I'll let it go.
Sure.
That revolver just fired 11 times. Whatever. I don't care. It's a rom-com. Meg Ryan's cute. I don't care, right? But when it's a show about intelligence world or about secret agents or about cops, and they just have flaming bad things with guns, that just makes me crazy as well. I'm just like, oh my God, is he gonna wait right until he shoots to rack the slide on that 870 for the 3rd time with one shot? I mean, stuff like that drives me nuts. So yeah, it's the same with the legal shows. Yeah.
Well, and I have friends who are in the medical profession. My wife's a midwife, and she can't watch any of that stuff. And so, like, okay, so I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but in season 2, they're in the midst of a murder trial, and in judges' chambers, in the midst of the prosecution's case, Your Honor, this very morning we found the murder weapon, and we're going to admit it as plaintiff's 18. And I'm like, no, you're not. First of all, the cops ain't out there doing any investigations during the trial. Second of all, you're not getting that admitted. We've already agreed to the evidence that is being admitted.
It would be, I would hesitate to say never, but it would be damn near never. Yeah, it'd be extraordinary circumstances where somebody was hiding evidence or something like that, which kind of ties into the show, at least theoretically a little bit, I guess.
But even, we'd be like, okay, we need a 6-month continuance to change what's going on.
Remember LA Law back in the old days, back in the 80s? I know you're younger than I am. But LA Law, it was like, okay, we meet the client during the breakfast meeting, and then we have 2 affairs with our secretaries before lunch, and then we get a $17 million verdict before I go home that night.
Right.
On the
It's a
same
good
case.
deal.
All on the same case, yeah. And it was like, good. It was just, I mean, I know they have to compress things. I know it's Hollywood, but lordy. But the problem is, as a practicing attorney, as a firearms instructor, is that people go into these things with false expectations. What do you mean it's going to be a year and a half before trial?
Right.
I just saw a TV show and it was like a week later. What are you talking about?
Right.
It sets up people for disappointment. It sets up professionals to disappoint people because reality is not like Hollywood.
Well, and so I'm still enjoying the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it because the writing is good, the plot line is good, and I do. If you've got Netflix, man, Lincoln Lawyers, it's an engaging show.
Lead actor's a good-looking dude.
Yeah, I mean, he is a handsome man. I'm not gay, but damn, that's a handsome man.
He's tempting me. Yeah, he's good-looking.
You know, and I think that the plot is engaging. There's enough kind of disparate plot lines to keep you involved. It's a good show, right? I just, and this is the same, like my wife and I like Law and Order, you know, and again, but in a Law and Order episode, somebody's going to die in the first 3 minutes. We're going to figure out, they're going to figure out who they think did it.
There'll be a quip when we find the body.
Yeah, something like that, right? And then it gets to the DA's office and they figure out what they're going to do. We have a trial over the next 30 minutes and then we get a verdict at the end.
Yeah. One of my favorites in all those procedural shows like Law and Order is that it turns out police officers can never arrest you unless the victim presses charges.
Right.
And
because it's not the state doing it.
Right. And if the cop doesn't want to arrest you and the victim wants to press charges, then the cop has to arrest you.
Right.
Which I love that Hollywood construct. That causes no end of grief for me in my practice as well.
So a good reminder that just like in firearms related stuff, we don't watch John Wick to get our knowledge of firearms. Although I know the armorer from John Wick and the guns of John Wick, highly accurate.
Yeah, pretty accurate stuff. Plus, I just visited the Sacre Coeur last week, and I fell down all 224 of those stairs, so I know that was accurate.
Did it take you forever? It's like a
no, it was pretty quick.
Yeah,
it hurt a great deal. Yeah,
not like Eddie Murphy delirious. Oh Lord Jesus Christ, I'm falling down the steps. That's an old bit, dated pop culture reference for you for that. But you don't get your knowledge of how to use guns from John Wick because it's just it's fancified for entertainment. You don't get your understanding of the legal system from Perry Mason or Law and Order. Honestly, if you want to watch one that's pretty okay, My Cousin Vinny from back in the day, not too bad.
With Fred Gwynn.
Yes, not too bad on some of the courthouse stuff, actually.
That's true.
Starts terrible, but gets a little better from there. But, don't get your knowledge of that stuff. And if you can be like, as little like me in this as you can, and you just got to suspend disbelief. This is not the American legal system. This is the fake legal system of the world they're living.
I would say one of the best movies that accurately reflected the legal system that I can recall off the top of my head. I mentioned earlier was Presumed Innocent with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Very good, because every Hollywood movie that has to do with a murder trial, the trial is the climax. The closing argument is the climax, and then the jury comes back in and there's a drum roll. It was very realistic because the judge prevented the case from going to trial.
Yeah.
And dismissed the case. And it was like, okay, that's a real slice of how things actually do work. There was proper motions that were filed, et cetera. And plus a really good thrilling ending that I won't ruin for your viewers, but it's worth a watch. It's probably 25 years old, but it's worth a watch for sure.
So look, he was all worried that, wait a minute, I was gonna hem him up with this emergency question that he wasn't prepared for.
Talking about movies, I mean, we can always do that, right? So, yeah.
And again, man, I'm not a lawyer. I know plenty of lawyers. I've been involved in the legal system enough that you go, that's not how any of this is gonna go. Especially in a case involving a murder and a self-defense claim and those kinds of things. It's just not, there's no self-defense claim in the Lincoln Lawyer, but there's, murder and all those things. So anyhow, good series, but don't use these for any knowledge of the legal system.
And you lawyers out there, do not have sexual relations with your client.
Yeah, period. And if you have had sexual relations with them in the recent past,
maybe refer
them to another attorney.
Exactly.
It's time to
refer. It's just going to overlap, right?
Yeah. So because guess what's going to happen? That impropriety is going to show up, and the bar is going to hear about it.
Well, and there, the appearance of impropriety without impropriety is impropriety, according to the ethical standards of the state bar. So you don't do things that look bad.
Yeah, just and so our final closing advice: don't get your meat where you get your bread.
That's the most polite way to put it. Yeah, I like it.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.